We're joined by Tarik El-Bashir, covers the Capitals for Monumental Sports Network. He's on the BetQL guest hotline. So despite the sweep, there were a few bright spots. Fehérváry scores 2 goals in the series, and Hendrix Lapierre's goal last night was just a thing of beauty. So we're going to see more of that heading into next season and beyond. Talk about some of the contributions from those two and some of the other younger players in this series.
Yeah, big picture, you take a few steps back, you look at the way this roster is constructed, and I really like the young guys that have emerged here over the last few months, and they just got some invaluable experience in these playoffs. You really don't know what the playoffs are about until you go through it. And now Lapierre and McMichael and Protas, those guys, they know what it looks like. They know what it feels like. They know what it smells like. They know what it takes to compete at that level. And so I think, that is going to accelerate their growth. But when you look at the way this roster is constructed, I like the core young guys. Like, they're starting to form a really nice middle of the lineup. What General Manager Brian McClellan and his team need to do this summer is to start filling in some of those top of the lineup guys. They still need someone who scores easily, the way Ovi did early in his career, where you just, every time this player touches the puck, you're like, oh, he might get one here. They don't have one of those guys. They need to get one of those guys, whether it's a number one center, whether it's a number one right wing or left wing. They've got to go get one of those guys. But I think in general, the future of this team looks pretty good to me. They just have to start adding some of those top of the lineup guys, because you look at McMichael and Lapierre. I mean, those are guys that, in my opinion, are going to be middle six centers for a long time in this league. Defensemen they say 200 or so games to really kind of find their groove, to kind of come into their own. Marty Fehérváry, he's coming up on that. Rasmus Sandin is coming up on that. Alex Alexiev, I think, took a big step forward. I mean, there were times where I wondered, where Alexiev fit in, or did he fit in? And the last month or so, or I would even say the last 2 months after Joel Edmonton was traded away, Alexiev made himself into an NHL player. So again, I like the young nucleus right there, in the middle of the lineup. He's got to add some of those top end stars to replace Backstrom and replace Evgeny Kuznetsov, Anthony Mantha. They need somebody who can score easily, and eventually they're going to need to add someone who's going to take the reins from John Carlson, who's got some time left, but they don't have that guy, that number one D in the system either.
Joined by Tarik El-Bashir, covers the Caps for Monumental Sports Network. Let's give some Tarik awards, end of the season awards. Who was the Caps MVP this season?
Rome.
No, I'm going to go Lindgren. I know, his 864 in the playoffs, that's a little bit of recency bias. I know maybe people were a little disappointed by that, but, he was outdueled by Igor Shesterkin, who won the Vezina a couple of years ago. The Capitals do not get into the playoffs without Charlie Lindgren, a 30-year-old backup for most of his career, a lot of his career in the minor leagues, stepping forward and becoming a 1A. They just don't get there. So I give him my MVP. I would say, runner-up would probably be Alex Ovechkin. I would say after that would probably be John Carlson / Dylan Strome. Those are my big four, but Charlie just, to me, stole the show.
Who was your most improved player?
Most improved, I'm going to go Connor McMichael, because there wasn't a big enough sample size for Lapierre and for Alexiev. I think they were in the conversation too, but they came on late. But McMichael showed himself this year to be he's ready. He is now an NHL player whose game is going to flourish. He's going to get more responsibility. His year in Hershey, his playoffs in Hershey last year, Redwood season in Hershey last year, you could see he was a different player all year, and he got better throughout the season, in my opinion.
And how would you grade Coach Carberry in his first year?
I hope so. I know I do writing and broadcasting. I don't get a vote. The broadcasters vote for the Jack Adams as Coach of the Year. I don't get one of those votes. I hope he does get some votes, because I thought he did a great job in his first year. I think that coaching staff in general just kind of struck all the right tones. You could tell they were very tight and on the same page. That's always very important. That translates to the players when there's friction. That doesn't help at all in any aspect of a team. You could tell they were all pulling in the same direction. And just in general, I feel like Carberry is such a great communicator. I think it might have taken him a little bit of time to get to the veterans, being the youngest coach in the NHL, but, he was able to connect with the youngsters and get them to improve. He was able to find the right buttons to press for the veteran players. And, tactically, I mean, you look at the roster and how it looked in the offseason or on day one of training camp, and what it looked like yesterday, It was a totally different roster, totally different. They played a different style of hockey than they wanted to play, 6 months ago. So he was able to, speaking of Carberry, I mean, he was able to adapt to his changing personnel. So, yeah, I think he did an outstanding job. I hope he gets some votes for the Jack Adams. And more importantly, the Caps can go into the offseason now knowing they found their head coach.